Gordon, send Moorhouse to save the house. Come on, the house!
Thank you to our 3 sponsors for supporting our podcast. John Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
When would you have made your second team debut, do you think, Mark?
Probably, on merit, Jez, would have probably been about 86, 87. No, 87. It wouldn't have been that far. It was 87, 88, I bet.
Right.
15, 16. I'm born in 72, so 15, 16.
I mean, it could be that Roger helped Matt when you did the managed duties for us, Brom. What years were that? Can you remember?
I think first one was 97.
I can't remember. Who were pro for year, Rog?
I think it were Motte.
So that'd have been that year, would it? And that were them stupid rules, weren't it?
And that was 98.
Motte just do 1 year for us. Motte were 98 if you just did 1 year.
1 year, yeah. Who were the year before? Correct. You did Corrie, didn't you, Rog?
Yeah, I did.
So that was 97.
So that were 97, were it?
And that was my first year.
I did get those years mixed up. Yeah, so Corrie were 97, was it?
So Roger did the manager my first year.
Yeah.
What a horrible man he was.
Weren't he? Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if any of you lot can remember this, but I remember being in the dressing room when he first walked in and he clicked his fingers at Dave Wally and said, "Boy, go and get my kit from the car." Dave Wally said, "Go and get your own."
Yeah, well.
And I really do think that set the tone for everything. That one,
Yeah.
I thought, what a horrible, arrogant man.
Yeah.
I think what set we've been on this before the podcast. I think what set
It's
the
still
tone
good
for the
fun,
whole
though,
season,
Matt.
Yeah, was the sportsman's dinner and the day after. The sportsman's dinner when Mark King's going to get him up, and bearing in mind we'd had Fleggs, Motte, we had Martin Van Yaar as well, or whatever. We'd had all Cameron Williamson, all these 6'2", I know that Fleggs, you know what I mean, athletes from Australia, and they get him to stand up and they'd all give him a round of applause, and then Corrie stood up in that green jacket. And Mark King, when he stood up, and he could see the smell from his mouth coming out, Corrie, with a stunk, and Mark King just said, "I bet he shags them." And then the day after, but no, Roger was there, and I'll always remember picking Roger up, because Roger doesn't drive, picking him up, going down to the game, and I probably wanted it as someone who I respected, who'd helped me when I was playing the seconds, and that obviously I did think of Rog in that ilk. That I'm not saying I want to play first team once for Roger, but someone who helped me so much, and who I valued his opinion so much, that when I asked Rog to take on managing, he said yeah, and I didn't want him to be the traditional bag carrier, drinks carrier. So Rog used to get involved, and he'd organise the warm-ups, and we'd talk about things during the game. But it helped me massively during the week, because in that year as well, it was so tough that year, Rog, when it was Corrie.
Dreadful, yeah.
Because as a cricketer, as a bowler, and I will still say this, I haven't seen anybody better. So we only needed to find 25 overs from one end, because one end you could just leave it to it.
He had amazing figures on occasions, hadn't he?
And Roger was a great bowler. He was a great bowler. And he had amazing figures. And I still speak to other people who didn't stand like Chippy did behind the sticks or me at slip, and they still couldn't. Top batsmen still couldn't pick his wrong, and they won 20-30 that day. It was a great bowler, absolute at the highest order, but he could bowl. So we got to the point there where we were only needed 25 overs from the other end. So you've got myself who could bowl. Obviously didn't bowl as much as I should have done, but that's what every captain's curse. You've got Jez, leading wicket taker of the club, best bowler in the club for 15 years on the bounce, and with people like Ryan Escott, Stanley, and I think people like Prop would be able to turn their arm over. There must have been somebody else, but it was always Stanley that got left out. because of his fielding and his batting. And the amount of conversation that me and Brom had and just said, and I'll never forget ringing Stanley up and Elaine Keenan answered phone. And I heard him, she'd give me a barrage of abuse in background while Stanley's on phone. Why is he leaving you out again? Why are you not playing again? Why are you not playing again? And I was like, Stanley, I don't know if you're going to bowl and you can't bat and can't field. Or you're not the greatest batter and not the greatest fielder. And I never said you can't to him. But Roger helped me so much in that and just like convinced me that that's got to be the case, Matt. You can't not pick anybody else. It's got to be Stanley, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can't rely on
Roger, in them days, we didn't have anybody like they do now where Joe rings them, Chairman Selections rings them, Stan speaks to him. It was captain, weren't it, on a Tuesday night after selection or ringing them up if Tuesday night practice was off.
Yeah.
So the amount of calls that me and you used to have, Brom, like, I'm going to have to do this again, aren't I? I'm going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
You never fucking offered to do it for me once, but you always said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. No, it's not easy, is it, being captain? Definitely not.
No, Roger, I loved it, but that's why I got you involved, because of the respect and what you'd done for me as an individual and a cricketer in the SEC team, and I think it worked quite well, didn't it, Roger?
It did, yeah. No, so it set the way for further managers as well. So
yeah, definitely, yeah.
I agree 100%, Matt. That really, it wasn't really done before then. You might have had a committee man in charge or whatever, but it really, and I think it was ideal with having Rog, because he was almost, he wasn't a shouter. He wasn't somebody who was trying to, be at the front of everything. He was the person who would help out, but be quiet behind the scenes, watch the game intently, every game. So it did work really well.
And then we had some really good conversations about it, didn't there? There were things that Rogers all the way through about selection and about batting orders and about all sorts of different tactics that Roger wouldn't stand up in front of the dressing room and say, you should have done this or you should have done that. Again, we talk about it in a constructive way, won't we? And probably on way home or whatever.
Over a pint or whatever.
Yeah, and we live quite close, didn't we? So you pop round every now and again and stuff, wouldn't you? So
yeah. It was. I mean, we will come back to this. There's just a bit of breaking news just coming in. We will come back because I want to talk about Rogers, his batting as well, because from the first team to the second team, and then that bat that he got. But I've just had some breaking news on Talk Sports just come through. There's some updates around this game in '98. I'll just go through to our outside broadcaster, Mr. Joe Beneduccio. Can you just update what's happened?
This is 100% genuine, right? Whilst you were talking, I sent a copy of the scorecard to Frank and said, can you remember why you didn't play this game? You played all the games leading up to it. You played the game after it. Why has Roger played this game at the end of the 1998 season? Guess what? Burnley played away at Luton the day before he got locked up.
You mentioned that, Jez.
Well, I thought
he got let out at midnight and there was no train until 7 a.m. so he couldn't get back in time. He says he thinks he rang the club at about 10 o'clock and told him he had bellyache and he'd been up all night and he couldn't play.
I'll tell you what, again, daft as it sounds, that will have been well before mobiles.
Well, he said that. He said it was before mobiles.
So we'd have probably got to the ground, Rog, and you probably borrowed someone. You probably ended up playing in someone's kit.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. At least he's honest.
Yeah, but it's come from Frank, so why spoil a good tale with truth, eh?
Yeah,
no, I do.
Well, no,
I do
he's
remember.
recorded it on his podcast.
I'm sure I can remember Brom playing. I couldn't remember that. But if Frank said it were poorly done, we'd have got to the club, wouldn't we, at 11:30? Frank could have rung that payphone behind the bar, and Jack Hayes would have said, "Oi, Frank can't play today," or something like that, wouldn't it? There'd have been nothing else.
Yeah. Well, you look at who was playing in that. Gary, you were playing.
Yeah.
in that game. Nicky were playing, so I'll have to ask Nicky. Sensible Blaise might remember it. I do remember something because there were a couple of times it happened at Nelson with Frank, where we had to get last-minute standings because of a similar sort of things, whether he was whizzing off his head. But yeah, good old Frank.
Played that game at Todd when he were whizzing it off his head and it kept hitting Brendan Nash in top at 80.
Yeah.
That another night of Bernage with Scully.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well,
so that's
I must have got
news.
I must have got injured in that game then, if at that age.
What? Because you weren't picked week after?
No, just because I always got injured.
No,
So,
I can remember you. I can remember you subfielding as well. I'm sure I can.
I seem to remember one game down at Lowerhouse when I was fielding on edge.
I'm sure there must have been something. Probably for me. One of my muscles that popped.
But I think I do rag on back.
That's funny though. When you look at, Roger, you batted in front of Johnny Russell, which I think you should have done. But we batted 55 overs, 127 for 8. What a shit season that was.
It was.
They got
An entertaining
30,
game.
Oh, they got 31 overs and beat us.
Billy Stelling?
Ridgeway.
Paul
Ridgeway it was, yeah. Yeah, brilliant. So that's the first on the podcast. Some breaking news in the middle of the podcast.
Roger, I'm pretty sure you sub-fielded a couple of times because didn't Corey used to go off and have a shower?
If he didn't, he shouldn't have done.
he had a shower on a Wednesday, that was it.
He had a shower, but he didn't clean his teeth.
No, he didn't clean his arse either.
Yeah. Settle.
Oh dear.
So we talk about the second team. I can't remember. Someone pointed out to me today, Brom, about your batting in first team. Is there anything you want to comment about that before we get some figures out there?
I don't think I got many runs, Jez. I hit a couple of sixes, but they had to be slow bowlers really, or very, very fastest medium pace. Anything above that, and then I was like, no chance.
I remember you taking a six against Ramy when they had Murray Bennett.
Yeah, he was good in him as well.
Yeah, he was. I was spinning it all over. We were, we haven't got 100 and we were getting stuffed.
I always say it though, Jez. They can't spin it if it don't bounce.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, you run down pitch. Yeah, because one of our researchers today has established you played 232 games and you got 332 runs.
They were good ones though, Jez.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting you batted every game, but it's just over one a game.
Yeah.
But you weren't that bad.
What was his highest score?
Pardon?
What was his highest score?
16.
16?
Yeah.
And 17 not out in Worsley Cup.
I think I saw that game. I think he'd have got 50 that day, Rog.
It was to win match, Matt. He knocked him off.
All right.
I used to run out to partners. That was my problem.
But I think, to be fair to you, we had, it's difficult. Maybe Gary could help me with this, or Matt. I'm not sure Joe could. But I would say you're a better batter than Johnny Russell. You probably weren't as good as Lofty. You're a better batter than some of the non-batters who were good bowlers for us. So I wonder why. I mean, you were always 11, but you never went above 11.
Oh no, I'm sure I played. Yeah, I'm sure I had a couple of games at number 10.
Really? Oh,
we were 11.
They were injured. Yeah, they were injured. But then when you got it second team, you were getting some runs there. So what was I know it's a lesser standard, but what was the turnaround there? What happened with you? Did you believe in yourself a bit more, or did you get a decent bat? What happened?
No, nail on the head, Jez. It was a lesser standard. The bowlers weren't as fast. Anything above medium pace, and I couldn't see it.
Right. Because you had your eyes shut.
No, I couldn't see it from square leg. I used to tread on umpire's toes.
So what?
And it was always straight, weren't it, Rog? It was all that's pitched it anywhere near, and it just went back straight, weren't it? That's what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. As hard as possible.
So what would? Can you remember any of those? What were your highest score in seconds? Can you remember any of that?
I think I nearly got 50.
I think you did. I thought you got a 50.
Yeah, I did. I thought you got a couple.
You certainly batted in top 6 or 7.
I might have
all time, and rightly so. But no,
I can remember one game. I can remember one game we played Burnley away, and I think it were Sherpa Van. I think it was 1988, whatever it was. Anyway, we were depleted. So Nicky was captain, and I was playing, and the rest were really kids. I think Ryan might have played, but everybody gone to down to Wembley, and Burnley were saying they were just a team full of kids, and they drafted in David
Nicky
Harvey.
was captain.
Nicky. So
I don't think Nicky ever played in seconds.
well, yeah, it was that game, and I can't give you any exact details of why he was in seconds, but we were in seconds, and average age at team, apart from me and Nicky, must have been about 12, and it was saying with Burnley as well. And I'd always dreamt, and I literally dreamt about getting 100 against Burnley, and I thought it's going to be today. So I talked to Nicky. I said, "Me and you've got to open up today, Nicky, and we'll just smash him. I'm going to get that 100 I've dreamt about." You'll never believe it. They had this little Asian lad, Belvedere Road end. He came trundling in, pitched it halfway down track, outside Austin. I cut it as hard as I could, and Dave Harvey ran round boundary, dived one-handed, and caught it off first ball. I was absolutely sick.
All right.
Yeah, I do. I think that was when because Burnley were in some finals, or they were playing at Wembley, and Nicky wasn't playing then, and he played just to captain because there was no one else.
Oh, is that what it were?
It must have been. Yeah. Because I went to Sherpa Van final.
Right.
88 it were.
88.
88.
Yeah.
Well, that was my dream popped.
We've had. I've asked for a couple of messages about you, Roger, over this week for people to come in. Someone's asked about a bat you had that was about 4 inches thick, and you could hit it to the moon. Matt Stanfield said.
If anyone can, Isan can.
Well, what were it about, that bat? I remember you carrying it around.
I remember one of our. I can't remember his name sadly, but we had an Asian lad who played in our seconds, and I borrowed his bat, and that was Isan.
Right.
And I remember just hitting a ball, and it was amazing. It was just like incredible. I thought, I'm going to get one of these bats.
Right.
So I did. But it weighed half a ton. It was difficult to handle. You could just about swing it straight, but there was no way you could pull a cut with it. It was ridiculous. I had only little arms, and but I'll tell you, used it just in Stockdale.
Yeah, he got a ton to do with it.
He got a ton with it.
Yeah.
So he could find middle.
Where did you get that from?
Cockers.
I tell you, there's another great tale. It must have been either pre that bat, or you'd brought that bat, or you left it to somewhere. There's another great story of when you used another bat in a game.
Not Tunk.
Yeah.
Oh,
SS Jumbo.
That was the most ridiculous bat I've ever. Honestly, it made this awful sack. It had a middle the size of a penny, and Rusty was the only one that could find. In fact, no, he couldn't find it.
No, Rusty never found it either.
But I remember once Rusty went out to bat with it, and there were a pretty average bowler on, and Rusty went to smash this ball as hard as he could. Everybody cowered, and it just about got to edge it square. He should have burnt that bat in the middle of the pitch.
I've got that tale wrong, but I thought you once borrowed it and you did that.
I think I did, just to see whether it did have a middle.
And you went and swung from your arse and tried to hit it into school. Everyone was looking up at air and it just went over umpire's head.
Yeah, it worked. It was ridiculous. And it had that awful sound. It was like it were a dud.
And it looked like it were painted white as well. There were no stickers on it, I don't think. It looked like it were white, but it was horrible. But I go back, maybe not Rusty because he was crap. But Stan, if Stan had had a decent bat and if Keith had a decent bat, they'd have scored more runs. Keith might have got 50 in his career. Sure. I don't mean season.
He once told me he hit a 6 with Tunk.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe that at all. He must have done it in stages.
I was just having a look at the league website. There are a very small selection of second team scorecards. So I thought I'll just have a look, see if any of Roger's batting highlights are on there. And I found a game where you actually open the batting for the seconds.
It weren't the Burnley.
Ever opening? No, it weren't the Burnley one. No, it were It were at church. But looking at the scorecard, we must have drawn batting positions out of an hat because of who you opened the batting with. PK Stansfield.
No way.
Is that when I kept wicket? Last match of season?
It looks like last match of season, but you're not on it, Gaz.
It would have been, yeah, because we used to have a bit of...
It looks like Payne's batted at 9, so they must have been taking piss with batting order, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. 13th of
And-
September, so probably the last game of the season.
How many did Brom get?
23.
There you go.
We won, chasing 136.
Say no more.
We're upside down batting order.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a bit of fun. If there were nothing to play for, end of season.
Yeah.
So another question I've got, Brom, that's come in from one of your friends. It's a serious question. So what, in your opinion, is the biggest difference you've noticed between when you first started playing first team cricket to what it's like now, or, within the last 10 years or so?
Facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot different now. Everything, the changing rooms, the clubhouse, the Grangeman's up still the same, isn't it?
And
Teal. But
it's electric.
Yeah.
Teal.
No, it is the facilities and obviously the coaching, which leads to better players. So
Yeah. I mean, you obviously were there before I was. What was did you practice, Tuesdays and Thursdays when you first went down there as 16, 17, 18-year-old?
Yeah, I used to practice like mad, and I was
talk us through what the facilities were like then. When you're talking that early to mid 70s, where you practiced and what you had to practice with.
Yeah, we used to practice in front of the pavilion, just further down inside a net, and the wickets were absolutely abysmal. And when Phil Aston came down to the club, or came back to the club, should I say, I was bowling quite quick, and there'd be a few of the first team players that didn't fancy getting it under chin with it, which is fair enough. I get it, but it's no practice for me running up and bowling half volleys all practice match. So there were a bit of falling out over the wickets. I'm not sure what they could have done to improve them really, because our Grangeman was the best. But it was difficult for a bowler and a batter. Like I say, I didn't want to bowl half volleys all practice, and
no,
I'm sure it's no good for a batter to just smash half volleys all night. It's not going to prepare you for the weekend, is it?
No, I mean it's quite. When you think back, because I did catch the last end of that, we'd have to put the nets up with them guy ropes, and that'd take you an hour to put them up, and everyone wasn't there, and it literally was. I mean, did you catch the end of that, Matt? Were you around then, or was it always on the square when you caught that?
No, right at the end, it might have been junior practice, but I remember where Roger's on about. Yeah, just a little bit lower down, just almost at the car park end from the West End room.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little from where where Gary burnt the tee up down, just in front of there that night. Yeah. But they tried to do a little bit of work on them in putting loam down and they'd roll them, but it was literally the outfield. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was. It was very difficult. And obviously, the improvement's been absolutely fantastic. What about pros from that era, Rog? It is documented that the pros were probably of a better pedigree than they are now, as far as if you would say world rankings, or you would say for what however you would rank them. And I know that it can't happen now. You're not going to get a young Ryan Harris or the equivalent of a 21-year-old in Australia now coming over to the UK to play cricket when he's got a contract back there. But just tell us a bit about what the pros were like and how they were with the younger players and what it was like to play against them.
Yes, sorry, Roger, just before you do that, Rod, just before you go back before Ryan Harris, because Ryan Harris was an unknown. Go back to signing Manoj Prabhakar, Jimmy Amanat, established, and all the league at that stage that had the established test players. You're not going to get that now, never mind the young Ryan Harris. No. So go back even further than that, Rog, because that must have been something.
Yeah, there were some fantastic pros. Obviously, you'll have heard of them all. But, when Michael Holding and Andy Roberts came into the league, for me, it was absolutely amazing because, they were the fastest bowlers in the world. And they were at the peak. So
after you.
Well, it was a bit like that. It depended on wickets, really, what the wickets were. But when he got that 9 for 13, it was just absolutely sensational. That was Michael Holding.
Yeah.
But Franklin Stevenson, what a fantastic bowler he was. And Steve Waugh, we had Steve Waugh.
Yeah.
Alan Border. These really are legendary.
But were Alan Border, the likes of Alan Border and Steve Waugh, that were before they met it, was it?
Steve Waugh was, he was only quite young. And he bowled really quick, It was... I
bet, yeah.
It was strange because he wasn't the biggest chap and he never used to say much, but I fell out with him a little bit because I got him at LBW and he weren't for walking. And I just told him to make his way to Pavilion. And he just walked past me. He didn't say anything. He just stared at me all the way past. And then he came out and bowled like Andy Roberts. And he bowled us out for about 60.
But they weren't tested because...
No, they weren't established at test level. But
Holding and Roberts and Richards were, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, yeah.
College King.
And, and Alan Border, they were, yeah.
But was Alan Border established?
Yeah. Not fully, I don't think, but he was certainly heard of.
Right.
And Ian Callan, when he played in league, he was nicknamed Mad Dog. And he was apparently close to being fastest bowler in the world at one time.
Right.
But I think he had a bit of trouble with his back.
Really straight and brilliant. And it did get less and less, didn't it? You know what I mean? We've had some fantastic names that have made it after us, even just at Lowerhouse with Jack Rudolph, Martin, Ryan, Yara, that kind of people. And the only one that we played against in the Heartwoods was Alan Donald. And we had that 1 year of him, which was just going back to when you played, and that was your debut, wasn't it, James Michael Holding?
Yeah, it was I'd played the season before because of Burnley holidays, but then that game at 81 at Rishton away was my full, first team game on merit as such. Yeah.
Yeah. So to go in that, because I think you were captain, Gary, and I'll never forget it. I think it was either on the radio or in the Burnley Express. You said it's something along the line. I can't remember the exact words. Something along the lines of, "You'll never, as an amateur footballer, be able to play football against Paul Gascoigne up Townley."
Yeah.
But with tomorrow we're playing against Alan Donald, and that was the it might not have been Gascoigne. I think it was, but you know what I mean. It was that. But back then, Roger, it was a lot more, wasn't it? It was a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more established.
It was amazing, and you almost came blasé about it.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, it was amazing to share a cricket field with these people, and it was normal. I remember my manager at work. He'd met a famous golfer because he used to love golf, and he'd met this golfer, and it met his day and his year and his I don't know. And he said to me, if you could do anything, what would you be able to do? And I said, I've already done it. I've played against Michael Holding and got him out, and it's true. And it was amazing experience.
Yeah, and that to me stands out, and I think the standards probably amateur wise and facility wise is just as good as it's ever been now. But pro wise, it's just unfortunate you've got these great players. The likes of Johnny White. Can you imagine him tomorrow in March having to go and play against Alan Donald?
Yeah.
But it's hypothetical. It's never going to happen, isn't it? You know what I mean? But it was, and going back even further, to get like Colin Milburn, was it? He was. I know he'd only one eye, but he weren't long England captain, weren't he? Not.
I think it was in 60s, really. Yeah. When in late 60s, I think.
We signed him in 2004, didn't we? How old was it when we signed him? Because I can remember people talk about that. We had Colin Milburn, England captain, with pro at Lowerhouse.
Yeah, I can't remember how old he was because we were only young. It's difficult to tell people's age. But I think he was in his 30s.
So he wasn't 50?
Oh, no.
No. And was he not playing first class cricket because of the car accident?
Yeah, but he was still.
Well, there was another reason as well, Rog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a raging alcoholic. He was. I don't know if I've mentioned this before when we brought. And I can't remember how I saw it, whether it was Netflix. There's a fantastic play about Colin Milburn, about his life. Yeah, just Google it. I can't remember where I saw it. And there's this quite relatively famous actor plays like all the parts. I don't know what it's called, that type of acting. And he plays these various parts about him drinking and about him I don't know what county he played at. I've just
Northants, I think.
Yeah, Northampton it was. And he plays the part of him, and he's fantastic. And he talks about, his different problems. He was born in 41. So when did he pro for us, Rog? Can you remember?
Yeah, 76 it was.
Yeah, so we're only 35.
Yeah, and he was a really nice chap. And like everybody will probably told you before, he used to get 2 pints every round. He used to get 2 pints.
Yeah.
So did Jez, but Jez never captain of England.
Yeah, you never made a big deal of it, did you, Jez?
No, never, Roger. I was going to come on to that different brews that we used to suck down the club, but we can come to that later. He was only 36, Matt, Colin Milburn, when he played.
I know, I heard, and I was just, So things like that, you'll know, and I know, like you say, it was a raging alcoholic and he couldn't play glasses in a car crash, but it is a shame because I think that, I don't think the overall standard's as good, but there are certain players now that will be top players then.
Yeah, you'll always get that.
It would be great to see them pit the wits against.
Yeah.
And I'm not just... I can only really talk about our own club, you know what I mean? But go back to Matt Walker, Johnny Whitehead, that kind of people, to pit them against them.
Yeah.
Top players, great amateur cricketers.
Yeah.
Will be really good because, unfortunately, as good as they are, they've not played against, on the whole, the calibre and the name and the that we have from mine and Jez and Gary's days, and going back a little bit further to Roger's days, and that is that's never going to come back, is it?
No, I wouldn't think so. With the amount of cricket that's been played
and the money that's involved in it now, they can go to Big Bash for 6 weeks, can't they, and earn more than they've ever earned.
Yeah.
And good on them. I'm not blaming them for it because
no, absolutely not.
It would be really strange when I'd love to know what Alan Donald's incentive was to come into play because he's the only one I played against. I played against the biggest one, and I know Jez. I know, but he can't have got more than he got at Worcester.
South African and cash.
Yeah, but it was from Worcestershire, Jez. He was playing county cricket. He can't have got more than that, surely.
Yeah, you've been playing 5 or 6 days a week, though, Matt. And to come and say you play one or maybe every other weekend double header
for a similar amount of cash.
Yeah, put you up at Dunkelhouse or whatever, or pay you this, or I'll put you through it books. You get this pretend coaching job, and you end up with 40, 50 grand. Well, maybe not so much, but
Yeah. I mean, you look at Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. It can only be cash, can't it? But you just think to yourself, if you look at what that's a great point. They're playing 5, 6, 7, 8 days a week, aren't they? In county cricket, and it can just run up and bowl 20 overs a weekend. Yeah,
it is a real interesting subject, isn't it? Like you said, it's highly unlikely to come back because of the amount of cricket and the cash that they can earn elsewhere. But you look going back there. Remember when Yarra came with us? I mean, Roger, I think it was Yarra who named you managed, didn't he? You were managed.
No, that was sorry.
Oh, was it? I thought that was Yarra.
No.
Yeah, I thought it were. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought. All right. So, and it was managed to get me jacket.
you were still managed, were you, in Martin's year?
Yeah.
I
remember once.
Martin.
I was just going to say, I remember once I was manager, and he used to like people, like Blaise said, he used to like people throwing ball at him rather than bowl at him.
Yeah.
And so he used to get quite close to him and throw a ball, and he was absolutely incredible. Anyway, before it started the season, I'd bought a sports watch. Nothing spectacular, right? But a nice little sports watch. Anyway, he whacked one straight back at me.
Yeah.
And it brought the face. It brought the face on this watch. And I remember taking it to that stall on Market to get it repaired. and anyway, I handed it off. I said, "Can you do anything with that?" He's looking at it. He said, "Where did you get it from? Did you get it from Greece or Turkey?" I said, "Why are you asking that?" He said, "Because Reebok don't make watches." I said, "Don't bother." Don't bother repairing it. Then it only cost 5 drachmas.
I can't believe you took it at Mendes. Brilliant.
You were Reebok.
What about going back and being in the dressing room with Iggy and Stan and the book and the banter that were going on around that period, Rog?
No, it was really good. Yeah, we had some good fun. I remember. I remember Lofty always, no matter what the weather was like, Lofty always wanted us to stop to the bitter end, even though if there were 2 foot of water on wicket, he'd still want us to stop, and it was ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
And I remember, it used to be Phil and Lofty going out to do pitch inspections every 10 minutes. And there was one time, there was standing water all over the field. And I thought, this is ridiculous. We won't play next week. So anyway, I stripped off to my boxer shorts and I ran out and the aqua playing through a puddle in front of changing rooms, just to make a point, how much water there were on field. Needless to say, it didn't go down well. But we Lofty and
there were a couple of.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, you're probably going to say the same one because I think you were getting a bit rebellious then, weren't you, towards the end of your career? You were getting braver when you, after Stan and got his head kicked in all the time. Go on, tell us that other one, see if it's the same as what I'm thinking.
Well, I think Dave Wally were a bad influence on me, and there were one game, and there were no chance we were going to play again. So me and Dave Wally got changed, and we got a taxi up to General Williams, and so.
Hang on. You got a taxi up to General Williams before the game had been called off?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Excellent.
Roger, can I just... I've never heard this story. Why you just sneaked at lane ends?
Because we used to go at General Williams.
Okay. But I'm just thinking it's further away, lot longer to get back if you needed to get back.
You're probably right, man. You're probably right, but I don't know. We used to go at General Williams, so... Anyway, so we got up to General Williams. We left our kit there because we were playing day after. So we left our kit down there and we were just having a couple of beers and phone rang. And John, or it might have been Dennis, I'm not sure who landlord then, and said, there's a phone call for you. And we answered it and said, we're about to start in 10 minutes. Get yourself down here. So we had to get a taxi back down to Lowerhouse, and sure enough, the game had been called off, but it was just
to the new way to ring.
Yeah, somebody had gassed us up.
Yeah. What about that game, Rog? Similar. You were never one to really want to play when it was wet, were you? Because slip sliding around, and you were always wanted to be first in the bar. When Lofty and Phil Astin are out, it had stopped raining, but there's clouds everywhere and there's water all over. And Phil's obviously saying to Lofty, get them lot to come out and help us mop up. And then you, proper rebellious, went out and you stood there pointing at these clouds. Can you remember that?
Yeah.
And Phil says to Lofty, he's pointing at clouds again.
It really was Lofty's sidekick, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, bless him.
Yeah, good Phil. Good lad.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
so to get on to the some of those ales we used to suck, Rog, which were your favourite? And then when the bar was the way around and we used to stop and have a couple of pints.
What was that falling down juice that they brought in? If you drank more than 6 pints, you were a legend.
Was it on Peculiar?
No, it were...
Roger, I think you're wrong. I know the tale. Are you not talking about miners?
No, that's another tale, Matt. Yeah.
You remember that one?
Oh, do I ever? Yeah. That was very
good. We'll tell after one. What the one were you on about?
It's before your time, Matt, but it's not before Jez's. Right. John Peel, that was it.
Yeah.
John Peel.
He was a Radio 1 DJ, weren't he?
And a part-time brewer.
Yeah, well, it's Theakston's. Was it not Robert Peel?
Thought he invented police.
Invented police.
Yeah, and you remember 2-8 out of that thing and that skull we used to have.
Good grief, skull. Yeah.
Matthew Brown.
Yeah. But I do think it was that John. I think it would. I know it doesn't sound right, does it, John Peel? But it was something like that.
Google it, Joe.
He's on it. He's on it. So go on, what were the miners, Matt?
Oh, this was going to be another part of my tale of my memories and thoughts and everything else of Brom. And we played down at the old Turf Moor gym. They had an indoor league.
Oh, yeah. I remember you playing there. Roger played, didn't he?
Yeah, so we played it first. So we'd have a team from cricket club. So they're like myself, Blaise, Proc, Payne, Ryan, Chipper, and a couple of
I
others.
filled in a few games. I didn't play regular. But
but Stanley played a couple.
I filled in a few.
And everybody's filling a couple of games. And then there was a team from minors, which was Brom, Bush, who else? Eze, Norman,
Duncan Spencer on occasions.
Duncan Spencer. So they were a decent side. And there were a team from Padiham, and they always thought they were really good. Sean Machine used to bowl speed a lot, or thought he was in there, didn't he? And then there were another couple, and then there were a team of Asians who were always really, really good fun. And then what?
Tommy Centre.
And Tommy Centre. So after a year or so, it might only be one season, Blaze and all that lot. And myself, I can't be bothered with this every Sunday, you know what I mean? It's right in the middle of, I think it was when football on telly all the time, right in the middle of football. And Brom, so we didn't put a team in. So Brom said, will you help us out, Matt? Every now and then. I said, yeah, of course I will. Because one of the last games we played against Miners, and they was a decent side, and they beat us now and again.
Yeah.
Butch played his pants and fucking hush puppies.
I played.
His brogues.
Check day.
Weren't it? Check day. Anyway, he was still bowling and batting, and he had these fucking brogues on. You know what I mean? It's like, so funny. So it gets there. So I ended up, I ended up playing quite a lot with Roger at Miners, and there were these. We would have a couple of sessions, wouldn't we, Roger? We'd arrange a day, like maybe a bit of a Christmas do, or whatever else. We say, right, we'll have a drink at Miners. So I'd either leave my car there, or we'd get a lift down up there myself. And then there were Norman, Eze. Who were playing then? It was me, you, Norman, Eze. Bush weren't playing. Two of them not.
Might have been Evanson's.
Could have been. Yeah. I was going to say non-cricketers, so you're probably right. So we'd always have a couple of things, and you, as everything, Roger was, I've got to be home at 5 o'clock. Don't matter if we're playing cricket at 11 and I've got from 12 till 5, or we're playing cricket at 3 and I've got 4 till 5, I'm going home at 5 o'clock. So no matter what it was, so he always used to organise it on a day when we'd play early. So we'd have a right good session when we get home, and 5 o'clock, no problem, and we'd go home. I live just round the corner from Roger on Prince. But Roger used to do it a lot more often than I did. And we played this one game, and Roger said, Matt, we've got to organise a session. There's a beer at Miners, and you can't drink 6 pints of it. It's impossible. Right? Is it Budvar or Budweiser? Budweiser on draft.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Roger?
Yeah, Budweiser on draft, yeah.
Budweiser on draft.
I'd drunk it the week before.
Yeah.
Snuck into our house when I got home, went into the front room with light off and fell asleep. And Leslie found me fast asleep in front room.
But so I'm like, Roger, come on, I know you're an established drinker, but of course you can drink. It's only Budweiser in a bottle's nothing. So we organised this this drink we were going to have. And I'll never forget it. And I don't know if you can remember, Jez. I was babysitting for Adam and Amy.
All right, no, I can't.
Right.
Remember, Jez?
Right. No, go on.
You can remember, can't you, Roger? And we'd have been home at 5 o'clock. I can't remember where you and Tricia were going, but I was babysitting. And they can't have been old. 8 and 6, 8 and 5, something along those lines. And we've got into Miners, and first 3 have Billy Big Balls, never touched the sides. And Roger and Ezzy just like, another Carling, please. I'm not supping that again. And what's the problem with you? What's the problem with you? And I had 5 and I had 5. The last 2 were really slow because I was pissed.
Were in your car and you had to leave your car? You decided
to leave my car there. Absolutely. I had always planned to leave my car, Roger, but I left my car down round back at Miners somewhere. And first 3 didn't touch sides. Then I was pissed. Second 2 took forever, and I just said, get me an half for last. And I had 5 and a half. And Roger, obviously, imagine how much shit he gave me for getting a half. And I fell asleep in taxi from Miners to Jez's. Right? Dropped Roger off. I got up. I was sick. This is 5 o'clock at night. I was sick outside Jez's gate post. Near curb. I'm very sick. I don't know where you were going, Jez. It weren't all night. I've only got to do 2 hours. I've got to do 2 hours. Come on, all together. I remember being
talking to yourself.
Yeah, trying to pull myself together. I was arsehole. And I got in. You and Tricia went out. And you woke me up. I was fast asleep on settee. Kids were still up. They should have been bed an hour and a half. And they were everywhere. And I was absolutely sparkle on settee. Budweiser was draft. Brilliant. Yeah.
That would take that week. That would take that week after.
Imagine what damage that would have done in Miners.
Jeepers.
Good fun.
Good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Good story, good fun.
John Peel beer does exist. Workington Brewery Company, John Peel Export Beer.
There you
go. Yeah, you don't forget a beer, Rog.
Yeah, it was lethal, and it was beer, not lager.
Yeah.
And was that a similar effect?
Yeah, very much so. The club had it taken out again because people were falling over off it.
Not drinking enough.
Including me and Jez.
Yeah, we did. So what? So then, we met quite a bit after. Roger, we were good friends going out together. We went on a bit of a jolly together with wife and kids, if you remember. We were Pontins or Butlins. Had a good little trip over there that Stan's told a story about.
It was
about me getting fined because we had a daily diary and Adam buried a donkey or something, and then and then we started going to Williams. They were good nights as well, weren't they? Up at the General Williams.
Yeah. Well, that's how the Christmas do evolved.
Yeah, of course it is.
I started going out with my brother and a few lads from Lowerhouse between Christmas and New Year, and the personnel varied from year to year. But then more and more people from Lowerhouse started joining us, and Jez came out and he just said, "Why don't we have this down at Lowerhouse instead of just going to General Williams and Bull and Butcher and wherever we went?"
Yeah.
And it teleported down to club. And
this is probably first year. It's not happened. Well, we had one last Friday, a virtual one, but it's not happened because Rugrats have carried it on since.
Yeah, good.
They've carried on the good tradition. So
it's changed so many, don't you, though, hasn't it?
You what, Matt?
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot more sensible than it used to be.
It's not like say trying to pour any pints of soy you can pour in your ear before you have to go home at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, there's a lot of gambling.
There's still usually a game of cards and a game of dominoes goes on. That's good, but it's not as heavy a session as what it used to be.
No.
I remember you and Ezzy having a drink off. Jez, can you remember that one year?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
because I'd tell you that Ezzy were a good drinker as well, so you were determined to get in a round. And, I remember I fell out at round after about 6 pints, so after an hour, and
power drinking.
That were me done, and then and you and Ezzy carried on pint for pint all afternoon. It was absolutely incredible to watch. And then did you carry it on down at Miners? Go down to Miners?
Yeah.
And then did you shake hands on it?
Yeah. It was about 22 pints with, I think, there.
Yeah, and just shook hands at it.
Yeah.
I never knew Ezzy was a big drinker.
Yeah, he's a good session drinker, Ezzy.
Yeah.
He just don't give up.
There's milk to him and all, isn't there not?
No, it's all beer.
Yeah, fantastic times.
He also played that game indoor. I think it was about 6 pints. They still were playing that indoor league. And it was
late kick-off, weren't it? Till we gone to pub.
It was about 6 pints, and I think he was wicket-keeper in his jeans and his Allen Knott gloves. And I was bowling, I was driving, and I bowled one. A bit short, and it flew past batter, and it just missed hitting him in the face and smashed the little window behind the door. He's like, I didn't see that one, and it was so close. You know, 6 or 8 times, get wicket.
That would have killed him.
It would remember that, and it smashed that little tall, horizontal oblong window.
And he had his hands up like that, didn't he? Wicket keeping.
With his jeans on.
And never put them together.
No, brilliant.
There's one non-cricket one, if I can tell you.
Go on, Rog. Yeah, go on.
It was from Cricket Club, actually. I think it was Prop that used to get tickets for away games in corporate. So it were dressed up, shirt and tie job. And we gone to we were playing at Crewe. And it was a nice little room. Anyway, we got shown to the room, and it was like a big round table with all our Lowerhouse lot on, Stan and Proc and all the others.
6 of us. There weren't a lot of us. There were only 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah, there were about 5 or 6 of us, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, me and Matt, when we went on these away days, we used to go out to bookies, didn't we?
Yeah.
And so we'd take everybody's bets, and then we'd go and put them on at bookies. But this Jobsworth security guy, he wouldn't let us out. We said, well, we're not hooligans. He said, well, I can't let you out. So anyway, he wouldn't change his mind. So we're sulking anyway, weren't we? And on the way back, we passed this little room, and it had a notice on the door saying face painting. So I thought, go on. So we walked in, and it's full of kids, and me and Matt. So we joined queue. And we had our faces painted claret and blue, and Matt had Nogan on his forehead, and I had Cook.
No Bonds.
Right. And then when we walked into that room after that, everybody just put their head in their hands and said, "Oh my God!" You could hear a pin drop.
Oh, they were brilliant, weren't they? We were like, "What's the matter?" But that same day, it was like a really nice room, weren't it? It was.
Yeah,
all, there were a lot of other home and away corporate people in there. And then you went and Crewe was only a tiny stadium, and you went and sat outside with the public, and something happened. I can't remember what it was now, but someone sat in front of us who weren't in the corporate, turned round and were like having a do at us.
With Danny Gilbert,
we must have said something. We might have scored, or whatever it may be. And I said to Roger, "How does he know we're Burnley fans?" I've got the blue face with Nogan, and he's got Barnes on sat next to me. Oh, yeah.
Is that the one when Danny Gilbert were with us?
Is that who?
Is that when Danny Gilbert were with us? He came on with one.
That was that was another one. We were sat in a really old rickety stand, and he fell asleep, didn't he?
With Hull.
Could have been, yeah, up that all the Hull, yeah, it could have been, yeah, that old rickety stand that were raining in. I'm sure he fell asleep, didn't he?
Stan put a tea towel over his head, didn't he?
Because it rained in, so it stand. Yeah,
brilliant. That. Thanks, Roger. Thanks very much for coming on and giving us a few hours there. We'll get it edited. We'll get it out. The fans love it. You know, some of the old spectators want to know you're on. They'll be all over it. And Matt, thanks very much for coming on as the second guest. I'm sure we'll be having you on again to come on with other guests that you can abuse. If there's nothing else for anyone, thanks very much, Roger. Let's hope to see you next summer when this pandemic's gone and we're back playing cricket. And thanks very much. And that's the podcast done. Thank you and bye-bye.
Ordered. Send Moorhouse to save the house.